Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind to Lead podcast. And today I am super excited because I have been following this beautiful lady for a while now. She has inspired me to create and develop my own LinkedIn profile. So her name is Karen Tisdell. Karen, amazing to have you here today.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. You've had so many amazing people on your podcast. I feel very flattered and super excited to be with you, Georgie.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, look, I really wanted to get you on because I think now more than ever, people are starting to think about updating their LinkedIn, their resumes. You know, the restrictions are slowly being lifted from everything that we've been going through for the last sort of, few months. And now it's really time to think ahead to the future and what people can be doing right now to really stand out in what's going to be quite a crowded marketplace. So before we get stuck into that, there's lots of exciting things I want to cover today. Can you just give the audience a little bit of an intro into who is Karen, your background, and what's brought you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So like yourself, actually, I used to be a recruiter. So I was a recruiter for 14 years. I started using LinkedIn as an early adopter in 2005. Yeah, I am that old. And I started using it to headhunt people. I realized pretty quickly that how you show up online matters so much to your career and so much to your professional success, that when I went on maternity leave in the last GFC, about a year in 2009, I started writing LinkedIn profiles, and I now do LinkedIn profile writing, and I also do LinkedIn training.
Amazing. And what do you love about the platform? Like, because it's evolved so much, right? And I say, when I first started using LinkedIn, because I was an early adopter as well, it was literally just a sort of a B2B platform, people getting on to find jobs and things, but it's evolved so much. So I'd love to get your sort of view on how it's changed and kind of why it is sort of becoming more popular these days.
Yeah. Well, actually, we've noticed a massive increase in LinkedIn activity just in the last few months. So, in this COVID shutdown time, LinkedIn increased so much. And the stats vary depending on who you listen to. But Think Social actually suggested that likes and comments on people's posts had increased by 76%, and others have replicated similar sort of statistics. So, it has increased in popularity, and I think that is because gone are the days of having a network where you only you've got 6 buddies you play golf with and they've all got your back. Nowadays we're meeting so many more people than our parents and our grandparents, and it's really hard to keep in touch with everybody. I'm originally from Perth. I lived in the UK for a few years. My parents are British, lived in Melbourne for a few years, and now I'm in Sydney. You've got an accent too, Georgie, so you've also moved around. And so we meet lots of different people as we move jobs and as we move locations. And LinkedIn is the place where you can keep in touch with everybody you've ever met. And it just automatically updates with all of their contact details. So I think that's why it's increased, because we realise that, one, how our digital footprint matters. We know that impacts our success, but also how do we keep in touch with everybody and make sure that they remember who we are. LinkedIn's the place for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something that's really important and something that I'm also really passionate about. You said how you show up online matters and is really important. So if let's say someone's listening to this right now and they aren't on LinkedIn, or they are using it, they're probably not utilizing LinkedIn as best as what they could, what advice would you have to just get started on this platform?
That's such a top question. I think that is the best question, because most people don't utilize LinkedIn as well as they could.
Agree.
Most people, everybody, like myself, you're really interested in people. It's what I love most about your podcast, and it's also what made me a little bit nervous about your podcast, because you really dig deep into who people are. I'm also really fascinated by people, and we are all each unique people with stories to tell and things to share, and yet so many people hide their light. They have profiles that look just like everybody else's. They use the same language. And I think it's important to really look at who you are and what you offer and why you do what you do, and make sure that you capture that in your profile, and make sure that you're proactive in connecting with people and also commenting. And if you're feeling that next level confident, creating content.
So how important is that sort of whole bio? Is that sort of the key here when people sort of start a new profile to get that piece right?
It is important because that's how, when people want to really know you, that's the bit that they go to. But I would argue that the most important bit is your professional headline. And that's the bit that sits underneath your name. And the default is your position title. Now, a lot of people are realizing that that's their position title and they're typing over it with something that is their professional label, how other people know them. But they're not utilizing all those 120 characters. You've got 120 characters, including spaces, and a little bit more on mobile. So I think it's so important to make sure that you've got keywords in there that really capture who you are, both from a relevancy ranking point of view. So when somebody is putting your name in the search bar or using Google X-ray to search through all of the LinkedIn profiles, but also it's really important in terms of when you're remembered. So when you're commenting on things, people see your professional headline. It follows you everywhere. So yes, absolutely. The about section is important, but I think that just having some keywords in that professional headline, and of course activity, most people don't connect to everybody they know. And that's it seems counterintuitive. People think that, I need to be on there, but then they don't connect to everybody. And I just think a weekly habit of once a week, every week, who do you speak to? Who do you know? Have you connected to them? As you've said in your podcast before, habits are powerful, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, because obviously I've started posting a lot more on LinkedIn in the recent sort of 6 months, as I'm sure everyone's seeing. And look, but I'll be honest, it was a journey for me, and it really took. I actually got this quite a lot, and I'm sure you do too. Like, where did the courage and the confidence come from? Because it is, when we start to put ourselves out there, you do get people who, are quick to comment, and, and I think that's what holds up. Fear is what holds so many people back from putting themselves out there, which is so wrong, because as you just said, everyone's got their own light. Everyone's got their own unique gift to give to the world. So what's like a common blocker that you come up against, as if someone says, well, I really want to grow my name and my brand on LinkedIn, what sort of things do you hear a lot of?
Yeah. I think it's what I see more than what I hear. People have all different excuses, but I think that it all comes down to that one universal truth, which is that the thing that is most in the way of people's success is always themselves.
Yeah.
It's that people don't have that courage. And when it comes to that courage piece, I actually, I have no judgment on people not having the courage to put themselves out there, because it's something that I myself really struggled with too. I have grown my courage muscle. I have grown my confidence, and that's taken me. I mean, I've been on platforms since 2005, but it's really only been the last 10 years of producing content week in, week out, that I've really grown that confidence, so that now, I've put videos up there on LinkedIn, and somebody once said to me, said in a comment on my own post, the woman in this post is most unfortunate looking.
Oh, oh my
I know.
God.
So, but my confidence has developed, and my
Yeah.
courage has developed to the stage where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. As opposed to, oh, that's so terrible, I should never post again. So I think, that's where I've grown over 10 years. And I think that we all need to remember that courage it is a muscle, and it's just about, just like you might have more confidence going to a party if you bring a friend with you. I think if you go, well, I need to be on LinkedIn and I need to be connecting with people who I don't know, start with people you do know. Have you connected to everybody you know? Have you then looked at people that they know and said, look, hi, we just met once, at this networking event. I'm, don't know if you remember me. Hope we can connect here. And then just start sort of growing your, okay, I don't, we've never met before, but we work in the same industry, and just sort of growing your confidence muscle by just stretching it a little bit each time. I think so many people think that they need to jump from here to here. They need to jump from anonymity to, oh, I have to be an influencer. And I think there's a lot of little steps between. And I think just like everything in life, if you just take those little steps and just say, go me, I commented.
Yeah.
Go me, I posted a post. Go me, I posted a video and somebody told me I was most unfortunate looking.
Yeah.
How hilarious. I think it just happens over time. So don't you think? I mean, how's your journey been?
Well, I completely agree with that. And I always have a thing now where hurt people, right? Now, if somebody and I'm actually very grateful. I haven't had a lot of hate actually, which has been amazing. But I know a lot of people have, and and they'll get that one bad comment of some negative person who's obviously not in a good place in their life, and it will stop them then from ever posting again. I just think that's really, really sad. And I just think that when it comes to, let's call them haters or trolls or what, different names, but I actually have empathy. I go, what is happening in your life that you've taken time out of your day to comment a nasty thing on my post where I'm trying to do good in the world? God, that's really sad. I feel really sorry for you, and I just
feel
think,
really sorry for you.
yeah,
absolutely.
And I'd love to hear what went through your mind, because it does hurt. And yeah, I've had some comments, before on, not actually so much on LinkedIn. I think that's a bit more of a professional platform, but on Facebook and Instagram, or what do you know, and who do you think you are? And it's like, that if I had let those comments really, if I had overplayed them in my mind, it could have knocked my confidence, but it didn't. And what did you do when you got that negative feedback? Like, what did you tell yourself to overcome it?
I'm really lucky because LinkedIn is such a professional network. So every time somebody comments on something, you can see their face, you can see their professional headline, and then if you click on their profile, you can see the university they went to, where they work, where they used to work. So because of that, I think it's that actually makes the platform, some might say, a little bit more bland, a little bit more vanilla. But it also keeps it a lot safer from trolls, So the trolling that I've received recently, where somebody told me I was most unfortunate looking, I seriously, and then I said, I clipped it and I sent it to a few influencers who I know really well, and said, oh my gosh, somebody's told me I'm really most unfortunate looking. How hilarious. And they were like outraged. They went back and they then commented on that person's comment, which made that comment rank even higher. So I know, hilarious. Which again, the irony of that made me laugh. But I think, for me, the trolling has just been so rare that, and it is so unusual on LinkedIn, that, I can count the times it's happened on one hand. And when I'm counting the other times it's happened, it's when somebody's disagreed with me. And of course, disagreement's always great, because that's where you learn a different perspective and you can grow as a person. So I have no issue with people disagreeing with me, but sometimes it's felt like people are, oh, well, did you hear this directly from LinkedIn? I'm like, well, no, but, so sometimes I've just thought, are they trying to undermine my credibility? What's going on here? But it has been so rare. And I think that's what's great about LinkedIn, is that you can see who people are. And I think also, it's also that aspect that people can see where you're working or where you used to work, that also makes people not comment on things. Oh, but if I comment, am I representing the company? And I think people think that, and they're not. And I just really urge people,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And actually, you've just touched on something quite, I think, really important there as well, because I found this a lot. So there's obviously people who do work for larger corporations who perhaps want to put themselves out there, but I feel, but I work for this company, therefore I've got to align with that company brand. So how do you go about sort of saying to somebody, well, yes, okay, you work for this big corporation, but it's still okay to have your own identity. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to be on LinkedIn, wants to sort of start putting out content and, showing up a bit more, but is a little bit nervous and even perhaps because I know that when I went from recruitment to now sort of talking more about, the mind and the body and things I'm really passionate about, there was a little bit of like maybe a disalignment to start with. But, it's all about, and you said at the start before we jumped to this call, the more you try things, the more you kind of realize who you are, what you're passionate about. So how important is that piece, and what advice would you give to somebody who is just wanting to start but is a little bit nervous to start doing it because they do work for a big company and they've got a few restrictions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think working for a big company, it's really important to look at. I typically will show people other people's profiles and say, let's have a look at Bernard Salt.
Mm.
Bernard Salt is a really well-known, amazing writer, and an amazing public figure. And he works at KPMG. So he produced posts. His personal brand is really good. You know Bernard Salt as Bernard Salt. You know Sheryl Sandberg as Sheryl Sandberg. You know her for her feminism and her championing and her lean in. And then when she wrote that beautiful book with Adam Grant about when her husband died. So she's not talking all the time about being the CEO of Facebook. She's
Mm.
not, that's not her brand. She's talking about her.
Mm.
So a really great story as well is, when I was at an event once, and somebody, I was talking at this event, and after the event, I spoke to somebody who's quite big on LinkedIn, Kristen Stevens actually. And somebody came up to Kristen Stevens and said, wow, you're really amazing, Kristen. It's so great to meet you. I'd love to work in your area. I'd love to work for your company. Your company's so cool. And Kristen said, what makes you think my company's cool? And this young guy, big adoration in his eyes for Christian, who posts a lot on LinkedIn, said, well, you work there and you're always posting on LinkedIn. So, they must be great.
Mm.
Great story, right?
Yeah.
So when clever marketers and all
Mm.
companies know that when their people look great,
Mm-hmm.
they look great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's just about making sure that you're talking about things that share your expertise. If you're a
Mm.
software developer, and you're talking about, tech without disclosing any sort of
Mm.
secrets about, I'm going to launch this next,
Mm.
but you're just talking generally about tech because you're
Mm.
really interested in software development.
Mm.
You're showcasing your expertise. You're
Mm.
making yourself redundant proof in that if your role does disappear, if you're one of the people, you know, who's a victim of all the terrible redundancies that are going
Mm.
on, you've already got that professional reputation
Mm.
where people instantly get snapped up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also making your company look great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk to that actually as well, because I do think that like I said at the start, LinkedIn is a really good platform now for people to start getting on if they have lost their job, or start really upping the content that they're posting. So, obviously I own a recruitment company, and the first thing we do after we've received someone's resume is then go onto their LinkedIn profile. It's just kind of part of the practice, right? So what advice would you give to people that are out of a job right now, who are going to be starting to go back into interviews, applying for jobs, knowing that recruiters and, HR look at people on LinkedIn? How can they optimize their profile? What can they be doing to really stand out in a crowded market?
Absolutely. What they can do is have a look at their profile, not from how they see themselves. So, how do I think I look to myself,
Mm.
but how would I look to people who are looking at my profile? And that sounds like it's the same, but it's actually quite different.
Mm.
So, making sure that it's quite conversational and thinking about what are people who you'd want to work for, what would they look for? What are their
Mm.
keywords? So, if, for instance, your last job, you were, what do they call it? Head of first first impressions, and your actual job was receptionist. Nobody's going to put director of first impressions in the
Mm.
search bar. They're going to
Ah,
put in receptionist. So,
yeah.
have you actually got all your professional labels
Mm.
in your professional headline? And are there multiple ways of describing what you do, as in multiple keywords? and have you captured them all? So looking at the job adverts, what are the job adverts asking for? What are the keywords in those job adverts? Have you got that in your about section? Have you got it in your professional headline? Have you captured all those skills? You know, if your job adverts are all asking for somebody who's amazing at creating pivot tables or financial modeling, have you actually got the words financial modeling in your skills? You know, and just making sure that you've got an optimized profile, and then making sure that you've connected to lots of people. It's really important to have at least 500 connections, so that way you rank higher. If you have less than 500, you don't get ranked as high in that relevancy ranking. So making sure you've connected to everybody you know, and potentially even reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn, you know, and reaching out to organizations that you'd want to work for, and not hi, I'd like to work for your company, but just gentle. You know, I see we work in the same industry, or long been an admirer of your company. I hope we can connect here. Just those activities are really important.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in here and say that, you know, I get a lot of people trying to connect to me on LinkedIn every day. I'm sure you do as well. And I always connect to people who send me a personalized message.
Yes.
How important do you think that is? Because you must get connections, but just people who just take the time just to write a little sentence. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I am absolutely comfortable. And if any of your listeners are listening to this and going, oh, I've just sent her an invite and I didn't personalize it, I'm absolutely okay with that. I'm very fine with people just going connect. And the reason why I'm okay with it is because I think that a lot of people don't realize that it is important to build touch points. You know, we all think that as individuals, we all know that we are special and unique, and we all think of our world through our eyes. But I think one thing I learned pretty early on in my life, you know, as somebody who's remarkably average height, looks, weight. I don't think I'm very unfortunate looking. I think I'm very unremarkable. So I think it's something I learned quite early on in my life, is that it's quite easy to forget people. And I'm the sort of person who looks like every second person, you know, kind of brownish hair, Caucasian, like, oh yeah, you know, so nondescript eye color, you know. So I think we all think we're memorable, and actually in truth we're not in an environment where people are meeting so many people. So sending a personalized invite to connect, even if you know the person, it's like a wave across the street. You know, you're on one side of the street, Georgie, I'm going the other, and we've just recognized each other, eye contact, quick wave. That's what it's like. And a DM is where we've almost sort of stopped and talked for a few seconds, you know. So I think it's just so important to see people crossing the street, so that you're just triggered. Oh yeah, there's that person. Oh, there's that person. And if they're creating content that's along a specific line, if they're an accountant, if they're always talking about accounting, then you go, oh, you know, there's Georgie accounting, you know, like for instance, you know. So I think it's important, again, that alignment.
I totally agree. And it's really interesting. I think that the way that the world is going, if you aren't online, you won't exist. And one thing this pandemic has definitely, I think, encouraged a lot of companies to do is think more about their online presence. And, you know, Facebook now, really, to get any kind of views on that, you need to pay, as you do on Instagram. You know, all these platforms are quite saturated, but LinkedIn, you know, you can post something and have 0 followers and still get half decent engagement. So what's your sort of thoughts on the platform and where it's going? And have you sort of noticed the engagement drop off slightly, or any sort of like anything that's coming that you might be in the know of that you can share at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things there. Yes, LinkedIn engagement has dropped off. And I'd heard this from a few people. They had said, you know, hey, I've noticed that my LinkedIn engagement has dropped off. What's going on? And then I looked at my own stats and realized that they were down. Mine are down by about 20%. I've heard some people say that theirs are down by 30 or 40%. LinkedIn is saying that there's a lot more people on platform. So I think that it could just be the amount of posts that are just diluting the amount of comments that we're all getting. But at the same time, other people are saying, well, comments are up. So, you know, there's definitely, but I think the more people on platform, the busier it is and the harder it is to get into as many people's news feeds. So I think that makes sense. Um, in terms of making sure that you have got eyeballs on your content, I think it's just so important to always sort of keep your audience in mind, as I said earlier, what is it that they're looking for, and just making sure that you're thinking about that. In terms of where it can go to, I don't even have an Instagram account. I know I must be the only person in Australia who doesn't, and I don't use Facebook either. But we also have to remember LinkedIn's free at the moment, so it doesn't cost anything to post. Um, and that could change in the future. In the future, given that LinkedIn's lost a lot of money through a lot of recruiters not using their Recruiter Lite subscription, they've frozen that, and they're not getting as many subscribers to that. And that has traditionally been 60% of LinkedIn's revenue.
Right.
It may be that they'll move to a pay to play function in future. So I think it's important for people to be posting now in order to get used to posting and try and develop their audience while it's not costing anything.
Yeah.
I also think if you're a job seeker, I would really urge you to put into the search bar the job title or a word of somebody that you might want to connect with or might want to work for, and then click on the filters and sort it by location, and then search on all filters, and you can search by company, you can search by university and connect with everybody who was in your alumni. Just using those filters, I think, is really important now, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those filters move to Sales Navigator, which is LinkedIn's superior search platform. And at the moment, they're all on LinkedIn Free and LinkedIn Premium. So I think we're going to see better functionality in the future, but I think that some of the functions are going to move to more paid platforms.
That's really interesting. I didn't think about that because, yeah, obviously recruitment, in the pandemic, people aren't hiring as much. So of course, people have, reduced their licenses, reduced the numbers. And yeah, like you said, that was 60% of their income. And, obviously Linkage is a big company. It's got plenty of employees, so it does need to earn money. So that's a really interesting thought. So I think that the message is like this is to really grow your brand, whether it be personal, whether it be like your business, LinkedIn really is the one at the moment to be probably focusing on and getting onto it now before all of these changes come in. So I think that's a really powerful message. And, I guess both you and I, Karen, have, really utilized LinkedIn, I think, really well over the last 6 months. And it's a platform that I really, really enjoy. And I'd love to sort of know what sort of good things have come out of you starting to promote yourself more on LinkedIn. What's sort of been happening for you from a business point of view?
Yeah. Well, I've been so lucky to have amazing clients who I've written LinkedIn profiles for. And one of them years ago was a real game changer for me. So he was a business process improvement consultant, so if he's listening now, and it was about 8 years ago, and I said to him, I only produce content about once a week because I don't want to get, and I don't have my contact details all over my profile because I don't want to get more work. I just can't deal with more work. I don't have the time. And he said, Karen, like, you are an idiot. And he said it in very nice words. He's like, the more clients you get through LinkedIn, the more you can increase your prices. I was like, oh, yeah. So for me, LinkedIn has been my sole funnel to grow my business, and 11 years on now, it's amazing. I've got webinars coming up with Telstra, Dicker Data. I've had some huge medical companies where I'm training their employees on how to use LinkedIn to grow brand footprint for the company, but also so the employees look great. I'm working with a lot of amazing individuals on how to improve their profiles. So I think that you can get so much work from it. And for me, that's been clients. But if people are looking for jobs, if they are active on LinkedIn, just putting out a couple of posts a week, if they make sure that they've got their contact details somewhere in their profile visible, not just in the contact information section, but I'd actually make sure that you've got contact info details in your about section so that you're just flattening the path, just making it really easy for somebody to see how amazing you are and see why you care about your industry, why you got into it, so that they can reach out and just say, hi, you don't know me, but I saw your profile, didn't want to connect, but just wanted to have a chat about an upcoming job we've got. Just make it easy for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's like people think, oh, if I'm social media, I'm showing off. And, not like we just said then, I think everybody has got their own unique gift, their own message to send to the world. And for me, it's about being passionate about what you do, about your industry. And, I think that it's such a, just being online, having a presence these days, it is just like it's so important for everything. And yeah, it really is an opportunity to grow your business, to grow your brand. And only good things can come, I think, from just showing up every day and just posting, putting yourself out there. And don't listen to the naysayers and the people who leave you negative comments, because as we said, you're always going to get that. It's always going to be negative people. So I'm conscious of your time, so I appreciate we've got other appointments to get to, Karen. So just finally, what would be one piece of advice you give to somebody who, wants to start an online profile and perhaps is just a little bit nervous, doesn't know where to sort of start? What would you sort of say, right, this is exactly what I want you to go and do today, go? What would you sort of say to them?
I would say life is all about habits. So I would give yourself 3 to 5 days to set up your profile. Just go through the prompts and just set up your profile, fill it all out, make sure it's in the first person. Listen to Simon Sinek's Why video, where he talks about why you do what you do.
Yes.
And make sure you've got an about section that's got your contact details in, and it talks about the problems you like solving and why you like solving them for. Because everybody wants to employ somebody who really cares deeply about the problems that they're not interested in. I mean, I employ a tax accountant because he's really interested in tax and I'm so not, so just making sure that you're showcasing your real genuine passion and interest for what you do and what led you to that. And I would do that for sort of set yourself sort of 5 days to do that, and then set yourself a week of sitting on the couch while somebody else, your partner's watching boring sport on TV or something, and just sitting there and just connecting with everybody you know. And I would have a script in Microsoft Word. I would have something, hi, it's been a while since we've spoken. I've just looked at my LinkedIn profile and I realised we're not connected. I hope we can connect here. Name, phone number, email, maybe your job title in there as well. Cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. And I know that sounds terrible, but you want to personalize those invites, like you said, but you also want to be efficient with your time. You just edit it each time. And then the week after that, I would be looking through your newsfeed and I would be commenting on lots of posts, continuing to add new connections, but just comment on lots of posts. And where you can, adding value in the comments, like, oh, that's really interesting. That reminds me of this. And then the week after, putting your first post out there.
Brilliant.
And that first post, thinking of LinkedIn as a news site. There is on the home section, there is your news feed. It's called news feed for a reason. So think about, you could write a post that starts off how to, if you're in cybersecurity, how to protect your business from, the best firewalls to use, 3 top tips to do this. So think about it as news. What can I give people that will help them? Not how do I get a job? How do I get a job? But what do I give? Because in the giving, we will showcase our expertise. Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, I love it because it was so detailed. That is literally the blueprint to get online if you are looking to start a LinkedIn profile. So Karen, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so pleased that we recorded this because I think, it's really important as we go back into the working world now, as restrictions are slowly starting to ease and, the job market is going to start to pick up again. It is going to be competitive. You are going to go up against people, and it's all about how can you optimize, how can you show up every day, and get the best opportunities. So I think that it's been such a valuable podcast for all of our listeners out there. And I hope if you're listening, you are going to take Karen's advice. And Karen, obviously, a silly question, but where can people find you?
Geez, I wonder where.
Yeah.
I think it might be LinkedIn. Now, can I just say, if you are listening to this, my surname has got the weirdest spelling in the world, hasn't it? As somebody who's English, it's usually Tisdell. I'm actually Tisdell, so that's Tisdell, Karen Tisdell. So please do look me up. Please do send me an invite to connect. You don't have to personalize. And Georgie, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm a massive fan. So thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Karen, you've been awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll speak to you next week. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.